Hey there, Groovesters. Ridgely here with another program for Groove Growth and Lessons from the CEO. It is my absolute pleasure and honor to welcome one of my dearest friends. And we were together for a long time in a mastermind, which we called a forum. Russell Schulte, CEO of ABIS. So Russell, tell us a little bit, what was your journey? How did you get to be the CEO, or how did that progress from beginning to end? Give us some highlights.
Well, first, Ridgely, thank you for this discussion, and I enjoy being a part of anything that can help. If I can help move other people's careers along or their path in entrepreneurism, it's nothing that brings me greater joy. I guess I started our company realizing that we were really good at helping other businesses automate their processes, and got lucky. And I think lucky is one of the biggest undervalued aspects of an entrepreneur. So we got lucky and got a deal with IBM where we actually implemented their computer systems at a lot of different major corporations around Houston, and kind of gained an expertise of how companies can use IT infrastructure and software to automate their business processes and really help make their people a lot more productive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know, so take us back a little bit to the actual decision. And the reason I'm asking is because so many of the people in the Groove community some of them are full-time and trying to build their business online. Others are still working at that other, getting that paycheck, keeping the lights on so that they can really focus more on bringing their message, their product to the world. What was the decision like for you to start a company? How did you go from wherever you were to, we can build a company? What did that look like?
I think again, going back, I believe there was two decisions in my life. So one was when IBM came to me, when I was implementing their stuff, they came to me and asked if I would do that full time for all of their customers in the Houston area. Because the people that I worked with were much happier than the people that they had other people working for. So once I accepted that from IBM, we started building our customers quite readily, but we relied 100% on IBM for those new customers. After a period of time, the scariest moment in my life was the day that IBM started making terrible decisions about networking systems and the way they were headed through their own proprietary networks. And we decided as a company that instead of honoring the person that brought us every single one of our customers, we had to do what was right by our customers, and chose to truly be an autonomous company where we had to get all of our own customers ourselves, create a sales team, and do all of that. So in the end, it was the decision to do what was best for the customers over what probably would have been best for the company at staying under IBM's umbrella and letting them do all of our marketing and stuff.
I think there's a huge lesson there, right, Russell? I mean, there's a huge lesson there. Treat the customer right, do what's fair. Tell us a little bit about the power of that, the integrity that is involved in making a decision that is frankly quite scary in that moment, I'm sure.
It was. And so about half of our customers listened to us and stayed with us and quit listening to IBM. The other half went with IBM. Now, here's what's great. About a year and a half later, IBM quit their path, completely abandoned all the customers that went with them, and said, we're no longer going to be doing what we call local area networks, the IT part of that. And we then, half of the customers that abandoned us for IBM ended up coming back to us in the end. So not only did we do the right thing, the customers that went away with IBM eventually came back to us saying, man, I wish I'd have listened to y'all from the very beginning. Right. So at the end, I think the blessings that came from doing what was right by people is always, maybe not the short game best, but in the long game, it always comes out to be the best.
And what do you, so in that, there's a big lesson for the budding entrepreneur, right? That has a chance to take a shortcut that maybe is a little bit in the gray area, and you wonder, should I take that shortcut, especially if things are tough? I'm just barely getting going. What do you say to that person to help them strengthen? Look, man, do the right thing. And in the long term, the right things are going to happen for you.
Yeah, I think that we've found that all along throughout our journey. It's funny, if you're in business a long time, you're going to deal with lawyers and lawsuits and different things that go over time. And what's funny for us is whenever we make a mistake, we write a check instantly. We own up to every mistake we make, no matter how hard it is or whatever. But that means to me that if we don't do that, we are eventually, I mean, we're always in the right. So we go to bed at night, okay. And with that being said, we've never had a customer at the end of the day, not once they found out all the information, not dropped their lawsuits or dropped whatever was going on, because we always treated people in a sense of we own up to all of our mistakes. And I believe in the end, then customers, even when you have a disagreement and in this litigious world, especially if they have lawyers on site where they pay them by the salary, so they don't have to, you end up getting in some of these disputes. But at the end, once all the facts come out, and if you've always treated people right, you end up faring well. And so we've always fared well with any kind of disagreement, which is a very small number of people we ever deal with. But as you get bigger and bigger, you'll start having difference of opinions. And I think as long as you always stand up to your mistakes and you make good on them, in the long run, those can be your best customers. The people that disagree with you at one point and you take care of them in the end up being your biggest advocate maybe 3 or 4 years later.
I 100% agree with that. How many times do you go, wow, you're right. We're going to take care of that. And my apologies to you. And people are like, really? You're owning up to your stuff? It's kind of sad that we live in a world where that's the weird anomaly as opposed to the more accepted norm. And yet it's a great lesson for anyone who wants to be a successful entrepreneur over time. So if you were to say, what was one of your bigger, I mean, because there have been many, but what were some of the bigger challenges or the biggest lessons that you've learned through your entrepreneurial journey? Give us 1 or 2 of those so we can all learn from them too.
I would say the biggest, the scariest step, which sometimes is the best, that changes your life the most, was we sold our software throughout in the 90s and early 2000s. And let's say each customer was probably about $1 million in revenue. And so we could sell 3 or 4 customers, make $3 or $4 million. It was always, life was good. But we decided that we were going to go into a recurring revenue model. So our new customers starting in 2005, instead of getting $1 million in revenue, we would only bill them like $60,000 a year.
Wow.
So our revenues immediately shrunk from $1 million. If we got 6 new customers at 60,000, that would be like 360,000. So we learned how to become very efficient at what we did. We took a huge hit on the revenue front, but however, all those customers that were with us in 2005, almost every single one of them is with us today in 2022. So again, the decision was made off of the long-term value was that we let our customers spend a small monthly fee with us, and then they stay with us forever. And probably one of the scariest things that ever did, when you drop revenue that much and you drop what's doing it, and you're just having faith that that's the best long-term decision. And then I can look back at it as in life, most of your great decisions you won't know for about 10 years and you look back on them. So while you're in the middle of the storm, you have no idea what's a great decision and what's not.
Yeah, you know what's interesting is that Groove just made that same decision. So during the beta phase of Groove coming out as an organization and growing like crazy, it was lifetime membership kind of stuff. And then finally moving to that recurring revenue model, which, by the way, as you suggested, kind of serves everybody. It serves the client on the end because they can amortize their costs. But think about all of you who are Groovesters, who are budding entrepreneurs, who also promote the Groove platform. I personally would much rather have that $50 extra a month, then it's $100, then it's $150. it adds up really, really fast. If every time you suggest something that works, it adds another piece of incremental recurring revenue. So what would you say is the most or among the most important things that new entrepreneurs need to learn?
I would say my biggest advice is don't be penny wise, pound foolish. Try to think about.
Say more about that. What do you mean by that exactly?
I watch so many people try to save nickels today because they don't want to spend $1. And then in the long run, they'll spend $20 to save that $1. You know, everything from, I've seen people shop their vendors so that they cut their prices so there's no profit in a vendor. But then when there's returns or whatever, they end up at the end of the day paying more money than they would have paid if they'd have bought it from someone that was their a trusted partner with them. So by partnering, I watch, and for us in our business, it's about automating everything that we do. So we spend the time on technology so that if we get a new order, the computer system goes through a flow chart. It automatically does everything for that order with no human intervention. That costs money to write up front in the first time you use it. But once you write it and once you have that automation, it works forever and ever and ever. And what I'd say is in everything that you do, if you create procedures and procedure manuals instead of doing it ad hoc, then I think you're going to end up seeing a big payoff for that. And so I see a lot of people don't invest in either their procedure manuals or the way that they do business or in their suppliers or anything like that today, that in the long run, you're not going to get the money, the return on your investment this week or this month or maybe even this year, but over the next 5 or 10 years, you will get that return. And I think that's probably the biggest advice we try to give to people.
And what about the characteristics of a successful entrepreneur? I'd love to hear your take on a few of those, knowing that some of them are going to be more inherent or innate, and others are going to be things that people can work on and try to develop. What do you think are some of the characteristics of successful entrepreneurs?
You know, it's the same characteristics of a gambler. I mean, being an entrepreneur is being a gambler. And that's why I think I know that in my life, I found people 10 times smarter than me, 10 times more educated, 10 times better business. But I was there when the right breaks came across. So I would tell you that if you're relying on your brains and your education and all of that to be successful, that's probably you need a little something else along the way, and to thank God for that luck that comes along when that happens, because sometimes you can't think your way out of a situation. With that said, you favor the prepared man. So with that same thing, I would say always be, as Stephen Covey said, sharpening the axe. If I have a sharp axe, I can cut a lot of stuff better. And what he talked about in sharpening the axe was really the point of keeping educated. So we were in a group called Entrepreneurs Organization, and where we meet with business leaders all over the world and get their best practices. And then Steve Jobs said it best. He said, steal everything you can from your competitors and everyone else, and then use it to help you so that you don't have to spend all the time and effort trying to think of everything yourself.
You know, I think back, Russell, you and I, as mentioned, we were in the Entrepreneurs Organization, we call it EO, for years and years together. We traveled all over the place together, all over the world. We would go to universities and things in foreign countries, on different continents, et cetera, just to sit in the room and learn from entrepreneurs more successful than us, who are further along in their journey, so to speak. So that personal development, that personal growth, obviously one of the topics we're talking about here is the concept that Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich refers to as the mastermind. And in EO, we called it a forum group, but really it was a mastermind. It was a group of people getting together to brainstorm and such. Say a little bit about the power of that. And I couldn't be a stronger advocate for masterminds and forums and peer-to-peer groups and et cetera, because it's not only the learning, it's the rubbing elbows with the people that you want, that you're aspiring to be like, and to understanding how they think and how they process data and information, how they act in different situations. I mean, what is being in masterminds or forums meant to you and your success?
So I'd say that I've always been in multiple forums or multiple groups, whether that's with the Chamber of Commerce at my city where entrepreneurs got together, or right now I'm in 3. I'm in one group that is a local Houston group, so I learn from them, but I'm in one group that's international, people from all over the world. And we travel somewhere around the world once a quarter and meet in person. And then I'm in another one that's all people that are older, that has very mature businesses and that are more working on their legacy as opposed to working on their business. And each one I learned different things at. And I think group knowledge, and whether that's anything in the Internet of Things and stuff like that, but group knowledge is always better than your own knowledge. When you start understanding that the amount of time and effort I can save by learning from other people's mistakes, who, believe it or not, entrepreneurs are really good about sharing them with you. So when you're going to do something, they'll share when they made the same mistake and what they found out from it. So you don't have to touch the stove to know that it's hot. Yeah. And I think that's a big part of been my journey and throughout my life. And like I said, even today, I'm in 3 different entrepreneurial groups focused on 3 different areas of improving myself and trying to be better at what I do.
Now, I have a little bit of an edge over everybody else, that we know each other really, really well. And I happen to know that you have a unique practice of getting up really early and studying stuff. So tell us about that. When did that start for you, and what has that given you? Because it's obviously, it goes back to what you said a little bit earlier, favoring the prepared man. And it's a matter of stacking the odds. And you clearly stack the odds in your favor on a daily basis.
I think, some people would call it a Bible verse. Some people would call it a song. To everything, turn, 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 there is a season. So throughout my life, I laugh because I've been through so many seasons, and I found that a lot of people have not, they stay in their sweet spot all the time. And I loved going to different areas where there was a time. So today I'm studying more about world political situations. I mean, I probably with the Ukraine and stuff like that. My son I adopted from Russia, so we were going to go to Russia this year and show him where he was born, but we can't anymore. So a lot of world events and things like that are really big on studying today. But there was a time where I was into the Bible and into other scriptures of different religions and reading those. So reading them over and over and over. So I think I've taken little 4 or 5 year increments in my life. So maybe one was sales and sales processes. And then I drilled down and read every book I could or listened to every podcast I could. But I break in every section of my life down into different areas and then try to spend my 2,000 hours on that section before moving on to the next section. Mm-hmm. And so for me, like I said, right now it's kind of more into world politics and the world situation that's going on. Before that, it was in optimization of key performance indicators. And then before that, it was something else. So throughout my life, I've just kind of tried to focus on one area and then spend a lot of time getting better at it.
Yeah, and I mean, that just ties right in with everything that we stand for here at Groove Growth, which is constantly sharpening the axe, as you were talking about earlier. Now, I know that you really have mastered and made it almost like an art form. I'd love for you to speak to this a little bit. The idea of making yourself useless or irrelevant. And you went and got out you got the URL useless CEO. But behind all that was making your team so good that they didn't need you, so that you could spend the overwhelming majority of your time working on the business, not in the business. And I'd love for you to speak a little bit about that process, that decision, and the fact that literally, it's been a consistent, conscious effort for many years now.
Oh, it's a continuous, it goes on and on and on. I think I learned really quick when I had a company in the 90s and we were doubling in size every year, that two things happened. When I hired that many people that fast, I hired a bunch of assholes that I didn't want to work with. So it became really hard to find a team where you felt good about going to work every day. And you would hire bodies to throw at projects because you had more work and you needed people to do it. And I realized it was better for me to hire a bunch of programmers and write business software so that when a customer places an order, the system automatically sends out a welcome email. It automatically sends a PO to the florist to send over a flower arrangement. It automatically, so the best possible way that I could do that onboarding with the client was all done with a computer now. No human was needed. So it's like a little robot that would do that. And I would do that for every section of my business. So I wrote procedures using software tools to basically handle all the day-to-day operations of the entire company. And once I did that, I could work on making the software product, the procedures in the software product better and better, as opposed to actually doing any of it. So I would not change the process. I would change it in the software, and then it would change it in the company. And I think too, again, I learned my lesson that we call it fire the assholes or get rid of the assholes. We don't like working with anybody we don't enjoy working with. So in life is too short. If you're somebody that we don't want to be around, we probably don't want to be around you at work either. So we have it's built a great culture of people that are here to, it doesn't mean there's no, difficult conversations or there's, beating of heads against each other, but it's never personal. It's never anything like that. It's always about ideas or concepts. And we recognize that and we enjoy that part, but being around people you respect and admire has made a big difference. And then learn as an entrepreneur to delegate. I see so many people not delegating. And if you have people you can't trust delegating to, then you got the wrong person in that position. You need to find the people you can trust to do your delegation that'll do the work. And if you look hard enough, you'll find people that'll do the job better than you'd have done it yourself anyway. And I think that gets to be one of the big keys to success.
How do you foster that sentiment of mutual respect? What are the daily things that you do to unite your folks, to make sure that they have the space to debate things if there's something that needs to be debated, while simultaneously respecting them and making sure that there's a standard that is upheld that says, hey man, you fall below this standard, you don't belong here?
Yeah, I think for us, our standards are we have a daily huddle. So we have a stand-up meeting, lasts about 8 minutes every day. It starts at 10:02. So every day the whole company gets together on this daily huddle, and we have KPIs that measure everything that's important to the company. So you become very visible. If you're not doing your job and you're not hitting goal and you're not doing that, it's going to become very visible to the entire organization. And then at that point, one of the questions we ask, are there any rocks or stops or needs that we need to help you to get over your goal? So you have the opportunity to go, I'm not hitting my goal, and here's the reason. The economic factors here are doing this, or there's something going on. And then you can bring it up to the team, and the whole team can then be a part of the solution if you're willing to do that. But high visibility, and everyone knows what their goals are. Everyone knows what they're supposed to do. And then it's high visibility in front of the entire company. Are we hitting the goals and the things we need to do to be on track this quarter? And then if we're not, just ask for help, and the whole company is there to help. I think, so we have that the daily huddle. We also have a weekly management team meeting so that the managers alone get together once a week. And then we have the strategic plan that happens once a quarter. So you have a quarterly meeting that sets down the complete strategy for the next quarter, then a weekly goal that allows you to go over that process. And then a daily plan that kind of gives an update to the entire organization, and then the visibility of your key performance indicators or your goals, and make sure you're hitting them.
So in essence, what you're saying is that there's immense value in discipline and organization in service to goals and the greater good. And I just think that there's an awful lot of ADD entrepreneurs who are all over the place, who lack that clear plan and that clear action steps in favor of the plan. What would you say to the young entrepreneur that's just getting going, that's feeling kind of a little bit of overwhelm, right? They got all this technology they're trying to figure out. They're trying to figure out efficiencies. They're trying to figure out how to make it all work. And it becomes almost as if having a clear plan is the last thing on their mind because they're scrambling all the time.
I think one of the things for a young entrepreneur that really set it in my mind, again, I'm an avid reader, but the E-Myth, it's now the E-Myth Revisited, is a fantastic book that kind of shined the light in my head as to what we needed to do. Of course, I always also believed in, and we talked about sharpening the tool, but Stephen Covey, it's an old book, but I will tell you it's based upon principles. And when you can base your life on principles, they never change. So it's not a fad. It's not something that comes and goes. Principles, it's kind of like he talks about a principle being north. North is that direction. I don't care how many people ever get around you and point some other way. There is only one way that's north. That's a principle. So when you can base your life on principles that are never changing, it doesn't matter what all the noise is around or the latest fad or whatever. So I always loved Stephen Covey's writings and the way that he talked about the principles of a great leader. And I think
book, Stevens, by the way, do you have a favorite? You have a favorite Covey book?
The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. I think, again, it's an old one, but it's based on principles. So anything based on principles can be old and still good.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Believe me, E-Myth Revisited and 7 Habits are right on that shelf, right over there. Right. We pull those out whenever we need a reminder of what we're supposed to be paying attention to.
Exactly.
So finally, sort of like if you were going to package up the gems of Russell to the young entrepreneur, if you could speak back to yourself as a young entrepreneur, what would be the 2 or 3 things that you want to tell that young Russell entrepreneur, now being a very successful, seasoned Russell entrepreneur? What would you want to tell them?
My biggest advice and biggest mistakes I ever made was usually being penny wise, pound foolish, where I tried to save $1,000 here, whether that was, building a house and trying to draw the whole thing up myself instead of paying the extra $5,000 or $6,000 for the architect or whatever. I would tell you at the end, I always thought about the fact that if I should have got them to do it, they'd have had better ideas at the end. Or whatever. And I think that idea of an architect to help you in your business, it's not just the architect that would draw a house plans, but the architect that works in your business is to hiring people to come in and help you design that. I think that's the biggest thing would have done it, because you can learn it over. If you want to take 20 or 30 years to figure it out, you can take your 20 or 30 like me. Or if you want to high speed that, then figure out, then get those people up front. And a lot of them will do it for not much money. I mean, if you get people that are retired and already have enough money, there's a lot of people that will help you out there with stuff like that. There's actually a group called the Service Corps of Retired Executives, SCORE, SCORE, Service Corps of Retired Executives. And it's all retired people. And, old retired people like to sit around and talk over a cup of coffee. So you can get a lot of free information if you're willing to buy them a cup of coffee.
Yeah, no, that's so right. There is so much truth into that. As you said at the beginning of our time together, you said, that you really enjoy sharing with other entrepreneurs, et cetera. And those older folks that are sitting around they don't feel like working anymore per se, but they got a lot of wisdom that they can share.
Exactly.
And it brings them a lot of joy to bring them into the mix. And, obviously that's something that we both share a big, huge passion for. All right. So if you were to say, what are 3 books that everybody should read. You mentioned 7 Habits. What else?
For an entrepreneur, definitely the E-Myth and 7 Habits. That would be the 2. And then, oh God, who would be the 3rd if I was, I'll just say that for me, one of the big changing ones for me was a book called Jesus CEO. And it was applying the wisdom, the New Testament wisdom of the Bible, of Jesus's words into your business and utilizing them. And that kind of, again, what I say about principles, that was principle-based ways to run your business and trying to look at things from the long term and better good of society.
Yeah. Well, Russell, we really appreciate the time. Thank you so much for giving us a little bit of your wisdom. There's an awful lot to take away from doing the right thing, to learning from your mistakes, to not being penny wise and pound foolish, to studying and sharpening your axe, and so much more. And I'd recommend Groovesters check this out several times, because one viewing of this will not even come close to letting you capture all of the lessons. My friend, my brother, my mentor, I appreciate you very much. Thanks so much for spending some time with Groove. And yeah, on behalf of the whole community, thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir.